Good morning, everybody. Hello, and welcome to the Online Collections Technology Think Tank series. My name is Colin White, and I'm the founder of Credit Connect and this event today. So I'd like to welcome you all, and thanks for joining us. Just a bit of background about today's event. The Think Tank series that we've created aims to bring together collections professionals to discuss collection strategies and assess whether technological innovations can play a role in producing best customer outcome. As we begin to enter a new normal business phase following the interruption of the COVID-19 pandemic, which I think has just gone through 6 months since lockdown. So it's hopefully this is really topical and really interesting for everybody who's signed in today. To begin with, though, I'd like to just outline some background to today's event. So just bear with me a sec. I'm just going to pull up our slides really briefly. We're not going to be slides based, don't worry. We won't bore you with that. But just want to go through an overview of the sessions that we've got coming up. So you've obviously tuned in now to Collections Futures, where we're going to be looking at digital transformation. Our next session, we're going to have a break at 10:50, and then our next session at 10:55 is going to cover customer engagement. And what you will need to do for each session, if you're viewing it, is to log in and log out. The next section at 11:45 will cover vulnerable customers and affordability. And then we'll finish off today with a really interesting subject that I'm particularly interested in is open banking and collections. So hopefully that should be an interesting kind of day for you all. If you're logging into everything, if you're not, then great. Hopefully this particular session's interesting to you. Before we begin, though, I just want to introduce you to your display panel that you've got in front of you. So you're obviously viewing this now. But on the left-hand side, you'll see, I'll put my pointer there, you've got an I, which is an information tab that gives you some information about the agenda today and coming up. Then you've got an important part that I want you to all to potentially use because it's called Think Tanks. We want all of your opinions, and that is the questions. So have a look at that. If you've got any questions throughout, just put them to us and I'll put them back over to our chair and ultimately our panelists and get their feedback. After that, we've got some speaker profiles to have a look, a bit of background to who we've got speaking today. And then the next section is supporter profiles. So have a good look at that. I'd like to thank our supporters, actually. So CRS, we've got Webio as well supporting us, and Interim, and have a look at their profiles. Without them, we wouldn't have today's event. So I'd like to thank them. But if you could spend a bit of time looking at that, that'd be brilliant. And then the final bit where you've got like a rectangular kind of folder item, which is, or document item, that is, it's links. So you can click on those and have a look at information related to the particular topic and or Credit Connect and all the various things that are going on. So have a look at that. And then also we want to encourage you to join the social media conversation today. So if you want to do that, we're only using the channels of LinkedIn and Twitter. It's got the links on the resources tab and use the hashtag collectionstechtt. So we'd really love you to be part of that today and join the discussion alongside the questions. And obviously we've got some polls as well today as well. So we'd like to involve you with that really if we can. Let's actually begin with a poll, and I'm just going to use, if I can get it up, the first poll. Here we go. So really simple one. We want to know if you're working from home or in the office, and obviously if you're in the office, we know you'll be practicing social distancing, but we're just really interested to see what kind of numbers are back in the office more than anything else. So we'll give you a minute to do that, and whilst you have a look at that for us, I'm going to hand you over to our chair for today, and that is Vanessa Northam, who is the head of strategic relationships at StepChange. Good morning, Vanessa.
Good morning, Colin. I hope everybody can hear me. So welcome, everybody. It's great that you've made the time out of, no doubt, incredibly busy diaries to join us and speakers across this morning. So a collections think tank in a global pandemic, with a cancelled budget and an imminent announcement from the Chancellor. I think the question is, can we hold your interest? Do we have a crystal ball? No, but we have a great set of speakers across the rest of the morning and into this early afternoon. We are ready and prepped to answer a range of questions on collections futures, and we welcome all questions from you, whether that's directly on this platform or via Twitter. So at a time when the collections sector is braced, for what and when, I think is probably a big question for all of you. But we do know that it's a time when consumers are going to need the support of your teams like never before. But let's not think of them as an amorphous mass of consumers. Let's think about them as people you know, people who are struggling, people whose businesses are facing a crisis, people who are being made redundant, and people who are furloughed and not sure when their income will recover. They're going to need the support of our sector like never before. So think about those people as you pose your questions to the panel. Think about your strategies and the challenges that your organisations are going to face in the months and quite possibly years ahead. So let me introduce our speakers. We have a great set of speakers for this session in terms of collections futures. So starting with Tim Anson, who is the MD from Credit Resource Solutions, Sally Nolan, Director of Business Development at Marston, and Mark Porter, Head of Collections at MotoNovo Finance. So we're going to open the event with our speakers by just asking them to give a brief introduction and just share their experiences from the last 6 months. And we'll start with Tim.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Hope you can hear me okay. I'm the, I don't think I've got my camera working, which don't worry, everyone. That's no bad thing. I think that's okay. MD Credit Resource Solutions. I've been here about a year. Just a bit of background on CRS. We're a DCA. We've got about 60 placing clients across credit, finance, telecoms, utilities, and insurance. We have about 60,000 or so placing accounts each month. We're based in a lovely sort of mill building up north in Halifax, which is where I am today. It's a bit quieter than it used to be. So COVID certainly having an impact here. Prior to working here, I did 10 years at Provident Financial as commercial director, and I was also on the board at the Credit Finance Association. And then prior to that, I did about 9 or 10 years at each boss where I worked in mortgages. So that's me.
Thanks, Tim. And if you could just give us a sort of flavour of what you've seen at CRS over the last 6 months.
Yeah, interesting time. I'm sure for everybody. Certainly had an impact. As I say, it's certainly quieter in the office. We're a business which is quite sort of it's one of the reasons why I joined the business. It's been on a digital sort of transformation journey for a number of years, and I think that aspect has probably helped the last 6 months. It's certainly something which has been helpful in terms of making sure that we're able to keep operating the way we need to. I think the key thing for us has been staying quite customer led. I bang on at any business that I've been in. I always bang on about having a really good customer purpose, and I think the last 6 months has said that that's more important than ever. And our purpose is very much about sort of helping people, clear what is often problematic debt in an affordable but quick, efficient way. And I think more now than ever we've needed that, just to make sure that we're listening and we're acting. And yeah, I think it's been a challenge, but like everyone, we've kind of just knuckled down and gone on with it, really.
Great stuff. Well, we look forward to hearing more about that digital element as the conversation continues. So, Mark, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm coming to you live from Cardiff this morning, working from home. My name is Mark Porter. I'm the Head of Collections at MotoNovo Finance. MotoNovo is part of the Aldermore banking group in the UK and wider South African first-rand banking group. We're one of the largest motor finance providers in the UK. I feel really old saying this, but I've been in the collections area for around 25 years in a variety of roles, worked at companies including Royal Bank of Scotland, TSB, Investec, GE Money, etc. From my perspective, the last 6 months has been like nothing we've ever experienced before. When Boris announced the lockdown on the 23rd of March, we saw, like I think nearly all collections areas, an avalanche of customers ringing up, emailing. We saw around about 10 times increase in emails coming in. We saw a month's worth of phone calls just in the last week of March. A lot of people who live hand to mouth had their income taken away from them literally overnight. And there was a lot of people who were very scared. We had customers that didn't know how they were going to feed themselves, how they're going to pay their bills. For the staff, it was quite challenging as well. So we looked at technology, of course, and how we could try and serve those customers because people wanted quick decisions. But it's easy, I think, to forget that first few weeks into the pandemic, after lockdown, the government hadn't announced any of the safety net measures, and our regulator, the FCA, hadn't really come out yet with what options they felt lenders should offer. So we were working with customers who were going through a really, really difficult period, a lot of uncertainty, having to answer a lot of questions. So when we considered what we wanted to do, we looked at technology, and we can certainly share some of what we did today with you all, but we looked at it at a human level as well. What do our customers need in terms of information? What options do we want to provide to our customers? And I think from a team welfare perspective, we also wanted to make sure we looked after our staff. So we got them all working from home very quickly, but we did a lot of stuff on the well-being front as well, because talking to 4 times the normal volume of customers phoning in, 10 times the normal volume of emails coming in, that's pretty relentless for the staff on the phones. And I think you saw supermarkets and other firms talking about be kind to staff and be nice. They're trying their best. And I think that's certainly true of contact centre staff as well, collection staff. We were trying to help people, but it was an avalanche of volume, of numbers. And so technology helped us. And so we can share a bit more about what we did today with you all. But thank you for the opportunity to speak. And it's nice to be here.
Thanks very much, Mark. Yeah, a really great point there in terms of the staff that have absolutely taken a huge amount on over the last 6 months. And not sure they were mentioned in key worker clappings, but I'm sure you looked after them really well. Okay, and by no means least, Sally, over to you.
Good morning, I'm Sally Nolan. I'm based here from home in Manchester, so we're currently in our own special local lockdown. I'm relatively new to the collections market. I started at Marston Holdings in January of this year. A bit about the company: we are a tech-driven collections enforcement provider. We have a number of other complementary businesses that with our own clients' business portfolios. Within the group, we also service both public and private sector clients across multiple marketing, tax licensing, electric vehicle charging solutions, development of semi-sensitive all types of orders, and recovery of debt internationally. At Marston, we were the first to introduce body-worn video cameras to our enforcement agents out in 2013. The first to audio record our field visits, and also we were the first DCA to be authorised by the FCA. Currently in the position I'm in, I'm predominantly focused on the development and growth of our international collection business, in particular the global commercial B2B business there.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Sally. I hope you'd agree. We've got a great panel, so we're going to start to put them through their paces with the questions that we've prepared, but please do share your questions. So we've heard you all sort of touch on there in terms of the tech and the digital aspects of your business, but what we'd really like to understand is what specifically, what aspect of digital transformation have you undertaken as a result of the global pandemic, whether that's new or enhancements? And I'm going to start with Tim.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So specifically on the last sort of six months, we planned a number of kind of enhancements already, which we we then did need to bring forward. So it was sort of a more of a reprioritisation. We've got a customer payment portal, which is probably it's been a few years old now. It's probably on about its fifth or sixth iteration. We've kind of been working on the UX and UI side of that for a number of years to just keep sort of honing it, and that's been a continuous improvement sort of exercise. But equally, you know, we have to periodically we kind of take a proper kind of step back and do a full review. That was planned for this year. We brought it forward, so we kind of just adjusted some of our sort of priorities, knowing that kind of through the pandemic, making sure that we're here and available with our digital solutions were particularly important. So we got that sort of up and running. In terms of sort of the capability around that, it's not an Amazon site. You know, we you know, our role within the customer journey is focused. You know, we're here to help, we're here to support, and it's making sure that kind of the portal reflects that. And same with our customer app. So that was kind of something that we did sort of early on. The other thing I think from a digital point of view, and perhaps Mark alluded to this, the kind of the volume of contacts. You know, an anxious, difficult time for a lot of people. And you know, we need to make sure that kind of we're you know, people in different situations feeling in different ways, that we're here to listen. So we've had AI through sort of chatbots on SMS, email, and web chat for a while now. But again, we kind of took the opportunity to really sort of make sure we built in all the right sort of macros and keywords around COVID, and all the vulnerability stuff that we had already. We kind of enhanced within those as well, just to make sure that kind of, you know, different times of day, days of week, that we're available, but we're not just, you know, the answers are good answers and the right first time answers. So that's been a kind of a step up in terms of that journey, which has been working well. And then I guess really alongside that, you've got the more you know, might not be kind of quite digital in essence, but those other things that you've got to have to support them. So, you know, enhanced forbearance and you know, breathing space and actions that we've kind of rolled out immediately, and just making sure that kind of we're not putting barriers in the way of customers. So, you know, if they want to do it by the website or they want to do it by the contact centre, that, you know, we're not saying, you know, we need proof of things. So we're making sure that when people call in, that COVID is mentioned, that forbearance is required, that there's no questions asked, they're put in place, and then people can just relax and not worry. And you know, they've got a lot of other things to worry about. And then I suppose the final point, you know, as I think Mark alluded to, the working from home. So it's, you know, it's not the majority of our inbound sort of activity that's digital, but we do still operate a good sized contact centre. So, you know, again, just making sure that firstly, you know, do we understand the risks of working at home? Do we understand the kind of controls that we need in place? Have we you know, have we got everything that we need in place to measure the effectiveness of those? And it's a case of just, quickly getting our skates on early on to get people operating at home wherever we possibly could. So it was a big spike of activity early on, and then a bunch of sort of monitoring and continuous improvement, I think.
Thanks, Tim. I think consumer channel shift is something that we'll probably come on to later on in the conversation. I really want to go to Sally next, but I think Mark, Tim was bringing you into that conversation. So we'll bring Mark in, and then we'll come to you, Sally.
Okay, so from our perspective, just to give you some context, we started back in 2017 a full-scale transformation journey in our collections department to create a collections department that was fit for purpose in the modern age and was scalable should we find ourselves. We thought Brexit. We didn't anticipate a global pandemic, but should there be a larger macroeconomic event, we could deal with it. One of those work streams in our transformation program was digital. So we partnered up with a company called Flexis based in Bristol to create from scratch a digital solution. And it's interesting, but I think from our perspective, when firms talk about digital, they often mean different things. And we in our heads knew what we meant by digital. We wanted a full self-serve portal for customers. So some digital solutions are very, very basic. You can go on and make a payment, or they're data capture forms. We wanted a smart system. So we worked with Flexis to build a digital journey where the customer could go on, they can complete standard financial statements. It's fully aligned with the trigger figures within the SFS. It assesses affordability. Of course, customers can do things like make payments. There's debt signposting if they need some additional help as well. There's a vulnerability side to it as well, in that customers can self-disclose. They can have help to complete the digital journey. We capture that. We've also got keyword identification. So if there's anything that suggests the customer's vulnerable through the digital journey, we'll pick it up. And that was very much in line with regulatory thinking, in that they don't want the move to digital to become a hurdle to vulnerable customers. Almost like we push everybody down a digital channel, and people that are not in the right place to go down that channel find themselves excluded or cut off. So we were very sensitive to that. So when COVID hit, we had this digital journey already up and running, where customers could agree payment arrangements, make payments, etc., automatically adjust their direct debit to take whatever's agreed. And if it fell outside of the digital rule set, it would go to our e-comms team. And our e-comms team would get the income expenditure details, would get the reason for arrears, any additional information the customer submitted, and can make a human decision and go back to the customer. We've also got two-way secured messaging, because we learned very early on that customers that choose to engage through a digital channel don't want to hit a roadblock and then have to pick up a phone and phone a call centre. They want to be able to message you and talk electronically. So when COVID hit, we very quickly created some new, we call them hardship journeys within our digital platform. And we worked with Flexis to get that up and running very quickly. When the FCA came out and said within the motor finance sector, the consumer sector, that we should be offering payment deferrals, we were already offering reduced payments or zero payments. We were already offering forbearance as the customer needed it. But what we found was that when the FCA came out and offered payment deferrals, and we saw it right from lockdown, customers did not want to be stuck waiting for weeks for you to respond. They wanted an immediate decision. They wanted that peace of mind. So it's not me overstating it to say that digital for us was a game changer during COVID. Our call centre was being swamped with phone calls. And what we wanted to do was those customers that needed to speak over the telephone, we wanted to remove those that could do it digitally to free up staff to deal with the people that needed a conversation. So we built the COVID journey. Customers could go on, input some information, and it would grant a payment deferral and give them an answer immediately. So the customer had that peace of mind that they had a decision. When we got to the payment deferral exit stage, so a lot of customers, their deferral ended and we wanted to talk to them about what next. We also created some new journeys there, where they had the option of another payment deferral. Again, we assessed their situation, so it's the right decision. Or we could spread the deferral amount over the remaining term, or add it on to the end of the term. And all that was done through the system without a human being need to get involved, driven by a rule set. So for us, digital was a game changer. It reduced the backlog we were confronted with, gave customers peace of mind. And maybe it sounds like a little bit of shameless self-promotion, but we did do some specific NPS surveys around the digital journey in COVID, because I think one of the traps that lenders often fall into with digital is, yes, we've got an amazing digital solution, it's fantastic. People like me talk about how amazing it is, but the customers find it hard work. It doesn't work for them. It's designed from a banker's perspective, not a customer perspective. So we kept it very clean, very simple, very straightforward. We had an NPS score of plus 72, which is world class, and certainly for a collections NPS score. And the customer feedback was really, really interesting. It was the point I've already referenced, a quick decision. They were worried and scared. They didn't know what they were going to do and what was going to happen. They just needed peace of mind, and they did not want to wait. And digital gave them that. And we also, I guess as a final point for me, steering people towards the digital channel took some thought as well. So we created some communication strategies utilising one-way SMS, two-way SMS, email, and where appropriate, outbound dialer. And even on the telephone, when a collector was doing an income expenditure form, they could trigger a digital journey so the customer could complete the INE rather than having to do it over the phone. and they could also then complete the journey through the digital channel, or once they've done the INE, have a follow-up phone call. And we also, because it was the SFS, one of the positives of the SFS is at the end of that journey, they could also download a PDF version of the completed standard financial statement. And rather than having to do it again for other lenders, they could take that to other lenders already completed and have a similar conversation with them. So for us, it was a multi-channel approach, but it was very focused on customer experience and reducing some of the worry and the fear that they were experiencing during the early pandemic.
Well, Mark, I've no idea why we asked you to come and speak at this event, but that sounds absolutely fantastic. I've written down a number of sub-questions, but I'm going to let Sally speak, just share what from a digital perspective at Marston.
Thank you. Similarly to Mark, we just extended and opened up our lines of communication very much. We streamlined some of our internal processes whilst people were off on furlough. We focused on tidying up some of the things internally. But yeah, it was some challenging times, and we actually found that in terms of changing our strategy, we changed from a predominantly dialer-based strategy to an email-based strategy, and we found that to be really successful. And we actually had an uptake on collection by over 2%, because people were at home at the laptop, so they were picking up the emails more rather than answering the phone or receiving an SMS. But prior to the pandemic hasn't particularly led us into any kind of digitalisation, because we were very much a digital company anyway. Most of the work that we do post litigation is actually face to face, though, and has to be due to the legislation. So, as a business, we're always looking to support our clients and their customer base in the most sort of appropriate way. And so we have had digital projects that we championed as a business. So, for example, we have an ANPR system, which is automatic number plate recognition. So, as part of the repossession process, we now have 180 ANPR vehicles driving around the country looking for proactively finding vehicles of interest in the automotive sector. We're also using bots. So we're currently running a project for our international collection business, and that will allow, irrespective of country, dialogue with customers all over the world, in 65 languages, and that will be 24. So you can be in China, someone in our contact centre, and type it in Chinese, you'll get a response in Chinese any time of the day. We're also recently acquired an electric vehicle charge and installation business, and that's helped support our clients' road to zero emissions, and we entered that market in 2019. So we're currently supporting our existing clients in the public sector by being part of the national network for the installation of EV units. We use propensity and address verification technology to ensure affordability. It's the heart of the enforcement process. And like I say, we did change our strategy slightly, but we also looked at the possibility of open banking towards the end of last year. But we took a look at the take-up rates on that, and we deemed that it was worth it. So we went through an income and expense process rather than took up the open banking, because I mean, when you phone people can have access to your incomings and outgoings. I don't think that they particularly want to allow that.
Okay, thanks, Sally. Yeah, we'll pick up on open banking later on this morning. It's interesting, the digital opportunities in that face-to-face enforcement environment, and I know that there has been some movement in your sector with almost digital sort of virtual assessment in the home. I think that's started as a result of the pandemic, but it'll be interesting how that does develop. Okay, so really good to hear sort of what was already in place and how the pandemic has probably galvanised some of that activity. In terms of sort of consumers and channel shift. Is it true to say that we're seeing a different set of consumers coming into the collections world, and actually their expectations for digital journey are probably higher than consumers prior to the pandemic? I don't know if anyone's got any thoughts on that or want to start the conversation on that.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I think absolutely we're seeing customers that have never been in arrears before. These are not people with underlying financial difficulties. These are people who have been impacted by an income shock as a result of a global crisis. In terms of their expectations, I think to echo what I've already said, they expected us to recognise this was a global crisis and treat them fairly, which is not an unreasonable expectation from lenders. But I think that the definition of fairness is not just the outcome, it's the engagement, the tone of the conversation, not being judgmental, recognising that these people haven't created this situation. And we talk a lot in financial services about forbearance, and for us commercially, we want to help get people back on their feet. But the key thing when we look at expectations is there was a very long list of questions. Customers wanted to know, how is this going to affect my credit file, my ability to borrow in the future? How am I going to get back on my feet at the end of this if you give me a payment deferral? What happens if I don't have a job? What's going to happen at the end of the job retention scheme, the furlough scheme, etc.? And the challenge we had as a lender was that a lot of these questions are not really the questions that we can easily answer, because we needed governments and regulators to make decisions. And so we were trying to deal with an enormous amount of uncertainty. And I think in recent weeks, you've also seen that uncertainty growing with localised lockdowns and certain sectors of the economy, like hospitality, taking a much bigger hit. And I think that we're sitting here today. I know the Chancellor is going to be speaking this morning while we're on the think tank. But there's a lot of scared people out there who, with the furlough scheme ending end of October, and also the regulatory freeze on repossessions and legal action come to an end at the moment on the 31st of October. A lot of customers want to know, well, what's going to happen next? What are my options? So I think for us, yeah, definitely different expectations, but speed of response and clarity within the answers what customers were wanting.
Thanks, Mark. Tim, Sally?
Yeah, similarly to Mark, we've seen the same. Lots of worried people, and not necessarily knowing the answers because we've been waiting for the government guidance. But yeah, like the guys keep saying, just a stronger level of forbearance and keeping the lines of communication open between client and debtor. There's been, we've accepted a lot more payment plans than we generally would do. We just have to accept that this is unprecedented times there, and think outside the box.
Absolutely. Tim, did you want to come in here? I've got some questions coming in from our audience, so happy to move on.
Yeah, no, I was just literally not a massive amount to add. I mean, I think the move towards sort of customers wanting to deal to manage things digitally is in general, it's not unique to our sector, but I think it then does cover everything. I think there's generally that expectation going on. I think dealing with debt can sometimes be embarrassing and sometimes be private. And I think for people over the last 6 months, it's been exacerbated. I think even more extreme. And I think it lends itself quite well to digital practices where you can manage things privately on your own device in your own home, rather than being connected to straight to a live conversation. So for some people, I think it's been a really, really important part of the last 6 months.
Great, thank you. Right, I'm going to go to a question from our audience. This is a bit scary if you're a panelist, because this is new to what we've got on our pre-prepared one. So this is from Marie at the Very Good Group. So what have you done differently, if anything, in relation to outbound usage or strategy from a digital perspective, but more pressingly, obviously, whilst we've had such an extended level of forbearance? Who'd like to take that?
Yeah, I can chip in first on that. We don't. Our strategy for quite some years, we haven't been doing outbound. We'll SMS, email, etc., in terms of our communications, and very much it's based on, inviting customers to speak with us. So outbounding to connect customer directly to a live agent, to a dialer, it isn't something we do, but that's not specific to COVID. That wasn't something we were doing before that anyway. In terms of just recognising that the role that we play in people's lives and the effectiveness of that.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Mark.
Our outbound contacts evolved quite significantly as a result of COVID. I think the first thing I would say in the context of digital is, which I guess lots of collections departments have been seeing in recent years, is dialer has been in decline, and our right party contact rates when we phone out the dialer have been getting weaker and weaker year on year. And I think that's because of mobile phones. People can see who's calling, of course. It's also outbound dialer, and Tim touched on this earlier with the embarrassment factor. It's quite an intrusive way of making contact. Somebody's sitting on the bus and they get a random phone call. They're probably not going to answer it and have a chat around debt. So we still use dialer, but we're trying to use it in a smarter way, a more targeted way. What we found is, not surprisingly, I think this is shared by a lot of lenders, is text messaging has really ramped up. It has the benefit of being very cost effective. You can send out a reasonable number of text messages in one go, whereas dialer, it can take a while to spin through. Also, coming back to the digital point, and we signpost our digital solution. So we include a unique link that we send out to the customer so they can go on 24/7 and sort out the situation themselves. Or they can pick up the phone by clicking on the number on the text message and ring through. We see our text messages campaigns anywhere between a 15 to 25% response rate, which is for two-way SMS, For one-way SMS, probably higher, especially when we're dealing with campaigns in the earlier years part of the journey where customers, are more likely to engage. But for us, we also looked at the content of the messages, so emails, text messaging. We wanted to make sure, because of, a lot of these people have never encountered a situation like this, nor had we wanted to make sure we got the tone spot on. And the language we were using was very much focused on, we want to help you, we want to support you, please talk to us, please engage with us. The hardest thing in the collections department is we've got a massive toolkit of things we can do to support people, but if they don't engage and don't talk to us. And so what we wanted to try and do was open up that dialogue, whether that's through the digital channel, two-way secured messaging, two-way SMS, one-way SMS, or traditional letter or phone calls. But we wanted to make sure that all of those different channels of communication were used in an appropriate way. So time of day we send them out, content of the communications, making sure that we capacity plan to deal with any inbound contacts. Because if you do outbound, that's great, but you're going to generate inflow. And again, that's been one of the biggest complaints I've seen on social media through COVID, that is collections departments, businesses just have not responded to customers very quickly. And I think that if you go onto social media, Trustpilot and Twitter, etc., you'll see across our industry a lot of negativity on that front. So it was about making sure the outbound strategy was linked to managing the inbound.
Thanks, Mark. No, absolutely. I think, the challenge for consumers is, you speak to one great organisation, your expectation is the next one you're going to speak to is going to be equally supportive. And if it's the opposite, that actually it impinges their ability or, their well-being to actually then continue to engage with the rest of the creditors. So, take your point on that. Sally, from your perspective, what's outbound looked like over the last 6 months?
Similarly to Mark, really, it's altering your strategies and making sure that every possible outlet is utilized the way that it can be. Like we had a huge success with our email communication rather than a dialer. But yeah, it's just a case of we do actually have a smart metering company in the Marston group as well. We are thinking of some sort of way in the future. I know that we're going to come into the question about future digitalisation anyway. Sort of thinking that we get some information from smart meter readings. For example, when someone gets home and puts their they're kept on for the first time, that would be a good time to make that call, or try to make communication with the person, because we know where they are and what they're doing.
Wow, that's taking smart data to the next level. So I'm conscious we've got 5 minutes left. I've got a ton of questions that I still want to ask you, but I think given that we're talking about collections futures, we really should sort of take a step up from where we are in 2020 and really look further out in terms of the horizon and the shaping, specifically around artificial intelligence and machine learning. So Sally, given what you just said about smart data, do you want to start that conversation as we try and bring this really interesting conversation to a close?
Yeah, I mean, the key will be to make the process more proactive rather than reactive. Try and make communication the best way possible. Try and use the information that we have as smartly and as cleverly as we possibly can. But in terms of the future, one aspect that I would think would be everything now is you can do everything through your Alexa or your smartphone. So, for example, you could potentially say, Alexa, pay my bill, pay X amount to ABC Limited, and that could potentially be something to think of for the future, because it's time saving. So that would be one aspect that I would like to do.
Great. It'd be great if Alexa reminded us as well. I'm sure she will. And I'm conscious she might start asking me something now. Great. I'm conscious of time. So, Tim, machine learning, artificial intelligence, where are you at CRS?
Yeah, so we do elements of it. We're on a journey. I think we've been on it for a little while. So obviously, we have a number of chatbots which have been, what chatbots require is setting up properly and good ongoing sort of monitoring and maintenance to make sure that they're kind of just being honed and they're getting better and better in terms of sort of right first time answers. We're as a business, we are quite digitally focused and we have been for a while, but I kind of always get pains when thinking about sort of the future and the opportunities that we're not a fintech business. It's important to recognise that we're a DCA, we're a collections business. So, our use of technology and digital aspects is to make the journey better, to deliver a better outcome for a client and for customer, and it should always be sort of looked on like that. I think there are loads of opportunities in terms of understanding behaviourally how customers are interacting.
Hi there. Sorry to interrupt.
Yep. Sorry, Colin.
Hi there. Sorry, Colin here. Sorry to interrupt. We're just running really tight on time now, Vanessa, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So what I'm going to do, just to round off the event a little bit, really, is just ask a really quick poll to the audience. One final one based on some of the discussion here. Hopefully it's a bit relevant. So just going to do that now. It's going to pop up. And all we're asking, maybe a sec, should be appearing now. Yeah. Okay. And what we're asking is, what new technology have you introduced during lockdown for your collections operations? Have you introduced a CRM collections platform, upgraded a dialer system, or introduced a self-service portal, some digital communications such as SMS, or implemented a web chat or chatbot facility? Sorry, I can't say that. So we just want to get your thoughts on that really quickly. Once we'll just close that off in a second. What we're going to do, because we're so short on time now, I'm really sorry to interrupt everybody. We had some great questions, and we'll do a roundup of this after the event. So I'm just going to close off this session, unfortunately. So what all I'd like to say really is thank you so much to Tim, Sally and Mark for their insights today. It's been really, really helpful, really interesting, hopefully for everybody out there. And we're going to obviously write a review of this, so it'd be great to get more insight through that. And obviously I'd like to thank Vanessa as well for chairing us on this first session. So what we're going to do now, we're going to have our next session, which is going to take place at 10:55. So we're going to have a quick 5 to 10 minute break. You can grab a coffee, catch up on your emails, etc. And the next discussion will be on customer engagement. So those of you who've logged into this session, sorry to be a pain, but you're going to have to log in and log out and start all over again. So again, everybody, if our panelists would like to say goodbye and myself would say goodbye, and we'll see you all soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Bye. All right.